Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm hope just introduce you to our session. Welcome to our live stream. So if you're watching this either later or perhaps you're coming online and meeting us here today, we're talking today about thriving in uncertainty, and uncertainty has really been quite magnified with the pandemic. There's always been lots of uncertainty in life, and but the pandemic's really kind of made that quite magnified to us all in a global way. So I felt that it was a really useful topic to bring us together on about how we can thrive in this really uncertain world. And my name's Sarah Haskett, and I'm a CBT therapist and a mental health nurse. And I'm also a long-time survivor of depression, OCD, and dyslexia. And one of the things that's really helped for me um, to manage uncertainty is in the little things. And so I wanted to invite you all into a little game. And what this game is, it has kind of two rules that aren't really rules. One is to do something different. So just kind of change things up a little bit. And that can be in little ways, little low risk things, mundane tasks. So take a different route to work, for instance. Wear something different that you wouldn't normally put together. Uh, Buy something new at a restaurant. Take a different meal choice. This really helps for me, particularly because, as I mentioned, I've got a bit of an OCD brain. I tend to, I can get quite fixed in repetitive patterns. So for me, going out and making sure that I just do something different every now and again helps me really to manage when something bigger that is uncertain comes up. So when there's something that feels much more risky, um, I can. It helps me to build a little bit of a better tolerance to that by taking small risks. If I buy something different at a restaurant, I might get it wrong. I might not like it, but there's also I might really enjoy it and I might find something great. So it helps to build a bit of extra evidence to the rewards that might come through not knowing the outcome. And the second little rule is to always say thank you when someone gives you a compliment or someone says something nice, because we're always so fixed at making excuses for why someone might give us a compliment or backing it off and say, kind of pushing it back. So just saying thank you, even if you don't believe it. So drop us anything in the chat. Say hello. It's a bit of a lonely stage sometimes up here when you're in a live stream and we can't actually see our audience. So do say something. Pop us a hello in the chat. And I'm going to let Mary introduce more of our guests today, and then we're going to get into a bit of a conversation. So Mary, please take over.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for this live event at such a short notice. And it was last year that I had seen Sarah's thing on Facebook. She needed someone to coordinate for last year's mental health event. So that is how we met online, and it's been 1 year full of lot of activities, and we had an online magazine. And I am Mary. I'm from India, and I'm a psychology student and also a film director and a podcast host of 4 shows and also a freelance journalist. So I'm like multitasking a lot. And through this, I get to meet a lot of people by the mental health organization that we have. And so we are here today again for the World Mental Health Day. And I would like to introduce our special guests, Justin, who is a professional mental health speaker, and he's been a survivor of mental health. And so he's here today to share his journey with us. And we have Naomi, who is releasing her book a very long way, and I got a copy before it was released. So she's releasing it on the World Mental Health Day. So I'm looking forward to hearing inspirational message from her about her journey. And we also have Dr. Pamela who will be joining us shortly whenever she's free. So she's also a mental health advisor and international speaker. So we'll be having her as well. So I can give it over to Justin now.
Well, hey, well, thanks for having me on the stage, and it feels good to know that people are actually taking mental health a lot more serious these days, and that they're putting on events like this. Like Mary said, I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a speaker, and I'm also a coach. But before I could put those titles, let's say, in front of my name, it was a 16-year long battle with addiction from drugs and alcohol, and also from from what I've learned, it was a lifetime kind of depression and self doubt and a really bad internal dialogue. Like I grew up and I always wanted to be, I always wanted to be somebody else. I didn't ever want to be me. And, I didn't find alcohol until, later in life, like 19 ish. I kind of found alcohol and it gave me that self confidence and who I wanted to be. As soon as I took it, I instantly became an alcoholic because I would leave my house. I thought I was funnier, but then it quickly started to shift. And at 24 years old, as I kind of like to tell people, there's two shifts in me. I was living in Vancouver, bartending downtown, and I'm walking across the Canby Street Bridge, and I looked up and I asked myself, "Am I an alcoholic?" And I'm like, "No, there's no way. I'm too smart. I'm young. There's no way I'm an alcoholic." The same year, I'm driving with a buddy, and the topic of depression came up, and I looked at him straight in the face and I said, "Depression, it's an excuse. It's for the weak. You got to man up. You got to go to work. You got to pay your bills." So at 24 years old, I thought, alcoholism was for not normal, with being not normal. Depression was for the weak, and you got to man up. And little did I know, my two major problems were depression and addiction. And it just kind of went down started spiraling down from there until finally I had to hospitalize myself with suicidality and alcoholism on January 4th, 2019. But ever since then, I've been on the straight and narrow path, and I get to speak in front of people on mental health and addiction and recovery.
So, Justin, what I would like to ask here is, do you think that men they don't show their emotional turmoil, too well, and there is very little scope regarding mental health, especially for men, because women can always, talk with each other, and they have a lot of support groups, and they have their own support groups. But for men, it's like always, they are being said, "Be a man, be a man." So the emotional part is usually hidden. So, what is your view on that?
Yeah, no, you're actually absolutely right. I remember I was working in a mill at the time, and I would forget the guy's name that was standing across from me, and because I was in my head telling myself to man up and don't be weak. Like, what's your excuse? Because being a man, you want to be the man. You want to show your strength. You don't really want to show your emotions. I honestly do think it is getting better. I know a lot of manly men that they're willing to openly talk on their social media about their struggles. I think it's getting better, but there's they want to be strong for their female partner or even their other male partner. So and not a lot of guys are comfortable with talking about it. So I like to tell people, I took it personally in the beginning. Like, why doesn't my buddy want to talk to me about this? A lot of guys just they don't know how to talk about it. I've noticed that females are usually more nurturing and caring in that kind of aspect, but men they they don't know how to talk about it. But I did find, I had that one friend I could talk kind of like more like sports or family, and then found that friend that he checked in on me every single day just to make sure I was doing good, because I was on a path where I wasn't doing very well. But it was nice to have him check in. So I have friends I can talk to different things about.
So, who did you go to, and when did you realize that you had to go and speak to someone?
Well, at 28, I knew I had an alcohol problem. So I went and started talking to a counselor, and then that's kind of when I got diagnosed with clinical depression, anxiety, ADHD, like not until later in life. And I started to get a scope and a feel on how it was, but it did take me 6 years of actively trying to get help. I spent 77 days in rehab. I went to 45 addiction appointments, 10 psychologists, 10 psychiatrists. I tried 8 different medications. But ultimately, I found that one why, and that why was my son. So in the beginning, I kept thinking, he deserves a better father. If I just do this, he's young enough. If I just end my life, he's young enough, he won't remember me. And my family, they'll understand. But finally, I started listening to Les Brown, Inky Johnson, Trent Shelton, these um, motivational speakers, and they started talking about finding your why. I'm like, okay, so what is my why? And then I changed my mindset to looking at that little boy, and I'm like, well, if I get better for him, I get better for me. If I get better for me, I can help other people. But it was a 6-year journey to getting better, and it was trying to find every avenue I could, with gratitude, with journaling, with eating healthy, going to the gym, um, anything I could, reaching out to people, not bottling it in, because I got really good at isolation. Because when you're by yourself, it's really hard to say something dumb and disappoint somebody.
I would like to ask, what are the little things that you have introduced to your son?
What are the little things?
Yeah, the
What
difference, like from your childhood, maybe, and the way you're bringing him up.
Oh, so it's everybody matters kind of thing. Before I drop him off he likes to play hockey and baseball and all that kind of stuff. Or when I drop him off at school, I ask him what he's going to do. And he says, I'm going to listen, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to have fun. So those are the three things that he says to me every time I drop him off at school or drop him off at sports. But it's everybody matters, and that you got to include everybody. And I think a lot of the world kind of goes, it's every man for themselves a lot, and we're trying to ignite the fact that everybody's included, because he's going to have a sister with Down syndrome, so she's going to be a little bit different than everybody else, and so it's just making sure that he knows that everybody is equal.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you. And should we bring Naomi in? Tell us a bit about yourself, Naomi.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me, and thank you, Mary, for connecting all the dots. And I really identified with a lot of what Justin had to say. So my background is originally, the way I came into mental health was through lived experience. I was in just before my mid-20s, I think, when I started to have a nervous breakdown. I was actually already writing at the time, which is what I do. And I was going to do my postgraduate degree at that time, and then I had a nervous breakdown, which was culminated in a minefield, actually. And it was quite dramatic, like my fall. So I ended up being taken to a locked facility by police, taken out of my house, because over here, I don't know how it works where you guys are, but we have a part of our Mental Health Act where if you're a risk to yourself or others, you can be forcibly removed and taken into psychiatric care, public care. So that happened to me. And then, I was obviously medicated, and then it was a long road back to recovery from there. Probably about 13 years on now, I'd say. And I can probably only say it's maybe the last 2 years that I feel myself again. So it's definitely been a long road. But in the interim, it's just been a massive marathon of a journey of just putting one foot in front of the other. And I've learned so much along the way. I struggled as well with drinking. And I wasn't really regular at drinking, but I definitely had a problem with binge drinking as a way to cope. But also just as a means of numbing myself, I think. I've probably always lent towards emotional fragility. I think maybe had a bit of a genetic vulnerability, but ultimately my diagnostics and stuff have changed. So, like I've got PTSD, but that nervous breakdown took a long recovery, and some part of that was, like I got pumped full of antipsychotics and mood stabilizers, and yeah, and then from there I ended up getting a really big passion, I guess, for mental health advocacy, but also suicide prevention. And I ended up penning my story to share with others, to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, and part of my book, I guess, I'm doing a two-pronged approach for consumers, so people on the lived experience journey. I didn't just want to tell my story and leave it at that, so I'm donating some of the proceeds from my book to suicide prevention body, so that I know that having written it will make a difference in some tangible way as well. So yeah, there's that, and I've just been recruited recently to do a TED talk, which is really cool as well, and I'm talking about the power of story and using storytelling as a suicide prevention tool, and what that might look like, and how that might change the statistics. Like, I'm not sure about you guys, but over here the suicide statistics are draconian. So like our figures are usually twice the national road toll, I think. So yeah, it's really confronting, but hopefully some part of my work will make a difference at some stage.
Yeah. Our statistics aren't great, and so it's this amazing global community that we've got here. We've got UK, India, Australia, and Canada. So it's really cool to be able to come together like this and talk about such important things, and particularly when talking about sort of suicide rates and kind of protecting people from that, and feeling we're coming together as a community. It's a real topic that's very close to my heart. I lost my cousin a few years back from suicide, and a couple of friends since then. And both friends were also male. So what Justin was saying earlier about kind of about men struggling to talk, I think was such a potent thing to say. I think it's so true that women tend to talk a little bit easier. That's not to say that we don't get so depressed as well. Of course we do, but society doesn't allow. You're right there, Justin.
Yeah, the lights apparently are. You have to move around.
Yeah, society often doesn't allow men to show emotions on their sleeve the same way. Yeah, so it's very, very important.
Well, you know what? I was on that suicide prevention team here, or in my hometown, and we actually looked at used the Australian mental health blueprint, because they actually have a blueprint that helps, and it was mostly centered around males, which was different to see, because we looked at the male suicide rate in Australia in construction workers. So that was crazy to see, but it was good to see that you guys had a global mental health blueprint. I don't know how much it's been used or anything like that, but our suicide prevention team was kind of trying to model it after you guys. And at one time, I did a mental health presentation with a group of high school girls, and the girl asked me, she's like, "I have a couple of friends that they're struggling." I asked them what they're going to do, and they said, "Oh, we'll just man up." She's like, "Well, what should I say to them?" Well, ask them how that's working for them.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna man up. Well, does that work? Is that successful for you? And then it starts to get them thinking.
Yeah, and that question can be applied to any kind of coping mechanism, couldn't it? How effective is this? Naomi, you were talking earlier about sort of drinking, and how effective is that as a long-term mechanism. In a short term, yeah, it might feel like we can relax, but long term, it certainly isn't. It doesn't kind of help us feel better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, it's interesting. I didn't even really I think to begin with in terms of my own experience, I lacked a lot of insight about my triggers, but like because I'd never been medicated or diagnosed with anything up until the point where I was taken to hospital, I didn't perceive myself as someone who was like mentally unwell. And I didn't even reflect on things like the fact that I would wake up really anxious every time I drank. And not only that, like it was toxic for me. So like I could get lippy if I was, like or argumentative if I was drinking. Like it didn't agree with me, and I have never had an off switch. When other people stop, I can just power through. Like it was not. It was interesting. I had a dinner with my husband actually. It was like a romantic dinner, and he said, "Oh, I wanted to talk to you about something." And I thought, "Oh, this might be nice. Cool. Am I going to get a present?" Like, and he was like, "I just wanted to bring up like about your drinking," and I was like, "Oh, that's not what I expected." And then he told me, if you think about it, like I said, I don't drink regularly. Like, it's not. He said, "Well, yeah, but if every time you drink there's a problem, you're a problem drinker. So you should probably stop." And I was like, wow, like it was really confronting, but it was also like really powerful. Like to be, I mean, I wasn't wrapped at the time, but it's like it was the best way he could have explained it to me. And I knew like that he wasn't just saying it to like manipulate me. He'd lived through all these experiences with me. He'd watched the fallout, and he could judge the situation from an outside perspective better than I could.
No, that's yeah. It feels like that's quite a it's quite an amazing opportunity that you had there in that relationship, whereby somebody could give you that. I think often when we're not really close with someone, or we're not in a really valued position with them, we might feel that it's difficult to give that kind of information to somebody. So to be able to have that that valued relationship, whereby that information just meant something so powerful, and for him to feel that he could say that as well.
Yeah, I've reflected on it a lot. Like it was a pretty life-changing conversation, but also like just amazing in that like there was no attack in it. Like there was no it was just like it was very frank. And it's funny because like I sometimes joke to him like, oh, in other ways, when you're explaining something, you can be verbally clumsy, like a bull in a china shop kind of thing. And on that occasion, he just nailed it. I'm like, did you get advice about that? Like, he reckons he didn't.
That's definitely a hard conversation to bring up to somebody, because I know I was pretty resistant, and I knew when I said I was at 24 and I was thinking about, am I an alcoholic? I knew I was. Deep down, I knew. I just didn't want to admit it. And then people would say, "Hey, don't you think you should quit drinking?" Because I used to drink every single day. Then it turned into binge drinking. I had no off switch. I'd black out even. And then people would say, "Why do you drink so much?" Well, it's better than having my thoughts that I have. So I would almost take it personally, like, why would they want me to feel bad when they know alcohol helps my mindset? So until I had to change that.
Yeah, we're so driven to respond to that short-term gain, aren't we? That moment of feeling better really drives us into more of it. Yeah.
Well, then definitely the feeling of coming down the next 3 days after binge drinking, the anxiety, and you almost think that people are after you, but they're not, or you're thinking everyone's disappointed in you, but really it's just all your feelings amplified. It's especially if you do take medication, you shouldn't be drinking at all, really, because or if you're not taking care of your issues, or drugs and alcohol amplify your issues by 10. You might feel good in the beginning, but when you're just grabbing that bottle or something just out of habit, just to be comfortable, you got something to take care of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Naomi, after that conversation, what was one of the main things that helped you kind of move forward from that?
I really identified with what Justin said earlier about like his motivation for change. I think the thing that I found that, like, because I've got a little boy, he's 8, he's beautiful. Yeah, like him and my big boy, my husband, were my catalyst for change. And I think, like, in a way, my husband, I felt like he'd invested so much in me in terms of being a carer for a long time that I wanted to get better, like, not like for him as well, but I wanted to be the best version of me to give back to him. And also with my son, I didn't think I was a good mum, and like I was doing the best job I could, but I knew in myself like it was inadequate because I still had all these things going on that needed to be corrected, and I just felt like desperate to fix it all. And like it was a painstaking process and it was frustrating. It felt like a cha-cha, like I'd go forward and then I'd go back and then I'd go. But then like you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you end up dancing at some stage. Or at least that's what I hoped for. So yeah, I think my boys were my big driving force, and now I want to flip the switch on that. So I've actually been talking to a coach about changing it so that like now I want to be better just for me, like as well, because there's no reason that I'm not enough to be better for. But I think when I didn't have that in myself, they were my reason.
There's a slogan that often sits in my mind, and I read it in a mindfulness script, but it just kind of sits with me, and it says the best gift that you can give others is to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And I really liked that because it really sort of moves that feeling forward of that you do deserve this, but sometimes because we don't feel like it, we might need to think about doing it for the people around us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to talk about finding your why. And a lot of people say you have to do it for yourself. They're like, you got to do this for yourself. Well, it sounds like me and me personally, we couldn't do it for ourselves. So you had to find that person that you do it for. But it's funny because you do it for them, you're really doing it for yourself too, right? Because not only do you get better for them, but you get better for yourself. So you're going to be a better mother, a better partner. And that's what it came down for me getting better for my kid. I ended up becoming healthier and having him in my life more, because unfortunately my girlfriend left when he was 6 months because I was drinking. And we were broken up for 3 years until I got better, and then I got them back, and now we have another kid. But I had to push through because I couldn't do it for myself. So I had to find the reason why.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you're sorry.
No.
When you're at that stage, when you're quite low in depression, I think it's okay to use external validation or anything else that you can like hang on to that means something to you to propel you forward, because like at times it was just all too much for me, So the fact that I had this little boy looking up at me, and bringing me flowers to try and make me happy, which was like simultaneously heartbreaking and like beautiful. It was just like, well, I've got to do better.
I think for me, one of the roots to some of my difficulties in terms of mood and sort of my depression is not being able to get pregnant, and not have that in my life. So I think I totally hear what you guys are saying in terms of sort of having that other person, but there are people like myself who don't have that other those people there. And so the way that I often try and manage that is to look at what reward might be in this situation. So yes, I can't. Don't have perhaps the life that I thought I would have when I'm facing 40, but I could have still a different life that might be just as good. So I'm not tied down with children. I could go traveling, or I can go out more spontaneously. I can just jump in my car and do a weekend trip. So while that identity of myself is kind of different to how I may have seen it to be, it doesn't need to. It's not necessarily a bad identity that I have. There's a new one, there's a different one, and there's rewards in that. So yeah, it's tricky, I think, when you think about trying to find how you better yourself for someone else when you don't have someone else. I'm not
So you
sure.
realize how much you actually have to offer.
Yes, yeah. That perhaps my offering is wider.
Mm-hmm.
It can be wider, can't it? Yeah.
Oh, there we go again.
Ah,
He's off. Come back, and I'm back.
I haven't actually talked about that in a public space before, so I feel a little bit vulnerable now. But it also feels quite nice to kind of share that.
Well, I'd like to honor you and thank you for sharing that with us, and that takes tremendous courage. And
Thanks, Sarah. I'm also aware that of the rates of depression in women who struggle with fertility being nearly as high as returned servicemen. So it's obviously, I can't imagine, but I think it would be a tough gig. Thank you for sharing as well.
Yeah, and it is that sort of that kind of sense that we are all carrying our own kind of baggage, and you don't know what other people's baggage is really, and being able to share and talk about these things, I think, can offer that opportunity to other people. So there might be somebody watching this stream who is also in that similar situation, thinking, well, I don't have that for myself either, and then in a funny way, I'm going to kind of use a different analogy for this. So somebody said to me the other day about wearing a mask when you're out. That because over here in the UK, not many people are wearing masks, but there are still people who want to be able to wear them. And someone said to me, well, when you wear it, you're giving other people the opportunity to feel okay about wearing theirs. And that feels like that's kind of relevant to this, that when somebody shares something, you're giving other people an opportunity to share their grief as well.
that kind of ties into your TED Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When is your TED Talk?
I was actually supposed to record it must be 2 months ago, because I was hoping it would coincide with my book as well. But we went into lockdown like 12 hours before I was due at the studio. So it will be coming out before Christmas. That's all I know at this stage.
Excellent. Well, keep us updated, and we'll put that out on the socials for you. Yeah. So tell me, what are your sort of tips and tricks for dealing with, for thriving in uncertainty? What would you say to somebody who was really struggling to manage all these different changes that we've been through in the world? It's an open question.
I think I actually think it's like the things that we ordinarily do, or like that I try to incorporate into my everyday life, but amplified. So, and it's really interesting to note that like a lot of the things that I did naturally before, I didn't actually realize they were self-soothing. So I was always like quite like into aromatherapy and like just I remember even when I was little being just mesmerized watching fish in a tank and stuff. And I didn't realize that that's just like a really calming influence. But yeah, it's interesting when you learn to like stop and slow down and stuff like that, that you realize why you're doing it. And even just like with my writing and stuff, the means of self-expression, like I've just taken the time to amplify those things that help me get what I need to out. That's worked for me.
I like that. So it's a bit like kind of being present in the moment rather than being caught up in thoughts and sort of noticing what's around. Yeah, taking in the environment.
It's the
Yeah.
difference between mindful and mindful. I think it's very important to connect. I didn't really realize the importance of connection. I thought when I was isolating myself, when I was in my darkest, that I was saving people from, the sad me, having to deal with me. But I think I look at the importance of connection, and you can, especially with COVID, if you're in lockdown, especially. To reach out to somebody different every single day, connect with somebody, especially your introvert friends. I found, I'm sorry, your extrovert friends. I was such an extrovert growing up, and then now I'm more of an introvert. I came out of my depression stage, and then lockdown happened. So I was like, you want me to go isolate again for a bit? I did that for 16 years. Bring it on. So I like to tell people, go check out your extrovert friends, because I don't know if they know what they're doing. But it's the importance of connection and checking in on everybody and being kind, because you never, like you said, people have luggage, people have baggage. You never know what somebody's going through, because they could be trying their hardest to keep it together that day.
Yeah.
And a smile can go a long way with somebody.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah. When I think about connection, especially over the pandemic, things really changed for me here, and probably for lots of people. Like you said, we were all told to kind of go into our houses and shut the doors and put a big cross on the wall. Not quite, but things changed, and so we socialized in different ways. But what happened for me is that it actually opened up this huge other network, where people were meeting across the world. And I met so many people during lockdown period that just getting involved in little like online stuff and meeting in a little Zoom room and it's a different way of communicating and everything, but it works just as well. And I almost then started to get a bit anxious about going back to real life. How can I be in a room with people? What's that going to be like? I can't just press the mute button when I want to fart,
I knew a girl that I went to school with, and she's like, yeah, we started doing wine Friday nights, but then we had to slow down because they were getting too bad. So wine Zoom meetings that were getting out of control.
Yes. Yeah, we're all just partying in our own houses. Yeah. I had Christmas like that. Christmas Day was like that for me.
You're sitting around drinking by yourself, but you got people on the screen, so it's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Sarah there because I started all my podcast shows during the lockdown, and all four of them are going really well. And I made a short film on male suicide, which recently won the best film social awareness film. So it was on that subject because I wanted to showcase that men don't speak up. And especially during the pandemic, it's been hard for men as well, not just women. So I wanted to showcase that, and it's been a success and it's getting rave reviews. So that I get to meet a lot of people online and all of you as well. So that's been really good during the pandemic. Someone said hi.
Yes, yeah, hi.
Hi, Sue.
But yeah, if you've got any questions or anything that you want to add, for those of you watching, just drop a message in the chat for us. Uh, we're sort of we've talked a lot about bringing people together, kind of the connections, being present in the moment. Sort of, I spoke a bit about sort of saying thank you, just saying thank you when someone gives you a compliment, and all these little things that we can do in day-to-day life, having a much bigger, broader impact. And I was wondering about that in terms of kind of the little things. Are there little things that you guys do? Mary, you haven't said so too much today. I'm wondering yourself, what kind of little things do you do that help you to kind of just to keep going? You know, just the little things. What little things have you got that you do in the
Well,
day?
I have a pet rabbit, and his
Oh,
name
have
is
you?
Teddy. Yeah, so he's a good companion. Like I stay alone. My sister, she stays in another flat in the same vicinity, but then I stay alone. So I have my pet rabbit Teddy. So every day he does some kind of mischief, and he has all his attics. So that's how my time goes by. And then I have all these Zoom meetings. So those are the little things I look forward to. Then my sister, she comes for breakfast. I go to her house for dinner. So that is how we kind of keep in touch. And that is what I like, being with my family and being with my pets. So I have a question for Naomi. You said you were in the psychiatric ward. How did you get through it? Like how difficult was it? Because since you have been taken away and you are away from your family, so what is it that since the theme is thriving through uncertainty, so obviously there is uncertainty when you are in a ward. You don't know when you're going to come out and what is the diagnosis. So how did you come out of it?
Look, to be honest, I was so acutely unwell that not only was I like, I think I was aware that I was vulnerable in so much as um, I had like a heightened sense of danger in that it was a very volatile ward. They can be scary places. So there was that, but also I think I was quite out of it. So I think it was actually probably more traumatic for the people around me to watch than it was for me, because at that point in time I was quite removed from reality to the point that it felt surreal. It didn't feel like, and it happened so quickly. Like my fall from grace and my deterioration in my mental health was so swift. It was just like, I, I didn't, I'm not sure that I fully knew in that moment what was happening. And it was only afterwards, I think, that I appreciated the gravity of what had actually transpired. And that probably was a saving grace in a way, because I'm not sure if maybe I shut it out a little bit as a protective mechanism, or I mean, I'd like to take the credit that I was really strong at the time and stoic, but I definitely wasn't.
Right.
And I think it's okay to say that you're not, that being being strong, being weak isn't really a thing. It's actually we're just going through the motions. We just go through life, um, and and we show resilience in different ways.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like, survivorship is an art in itself, really.
Yeah,
That's what I've come to realize over the course of this journey. And that's the first step back. Hey, like,
yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, let's start to wrap things up a little bit. So I just want to ask you guys for one message that you would like to send away today to people out there watching, Justin, what would you say?
Let's find your why. Everybody has one. It doesn't have to be this glorious thing, but find your why to live. Like you are somebody out there, and you deserve to be there. Be here, and if you don't see light at the end of the tunnel, you keep on walking, because on the other side is your greatness.
That's nice. Thank you. Yeah, Naomi.
Yeah, mine would be pretty similar. I guess like I really value creativity as well. So if you can find a means of self-expression, whether it's creative, art, even some people just really like communicating with their pets, and I think that's really special as well. Like they're just really valuable relationships that if they're nurtured, like they can be your why. So I think it's very, and a recovery journey is very like personal to that person. And I think like when we try and tell people, oh, like this is the way forward, it doesn't always work because it doesn't fit into their lives. But if you can do it for yourself, then I think, or you can figure out those key messages for yourself of what makes you tick, that's going to help you on your journey.
Yeah, lovely. Mary, do you have anything to add? One thing.
I would just like to say thank you to our special guest, for sparing the time, because I just shot them emails maybe a week ago or 2, 3 days ago, and they agreed to be on the show. So I'm really glad that we could have this chat and, help.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, both Justin and Naomi.
Thank you. Oh,
Yes.
Uh,
that's our cue to say we've been too long already. The light's already gone 2 times. Yeah, this was thrown together really quickly, and I know we haven't done a live stream for a long time, so it's really nice to kind of get back on the live stream. I know more people have been watching the podcast, or listening to the podcast. So those of you who might be listening to this later, thank you for joining us. And yeah, remember when I started this show, I mentioned 2 things that I invite everyone to do this week, and that is to do something different, take a different way to work, or wear something different, buy something different at a restaurant, and to say thank you when you get a compliment this week. Don't bat it away, just say thank you, and let me know how it goes. I'm really looking forward to hearing about it. So, and thank you, Mary, for pulling this together, because you did all the legwork here to get this happening. It's just great to be able to meet and sort of celebrate good mental health, mental health awareness day. So,
Thank you.
so
thank you.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Bye.